So recording is started. This is the third posted interview with John Kluse. So John, say hi to the audience.
Hey everyone.
All right, so let's get started. We had a big week. So tell me about uh, the past week and especially yesterday. That was a big day.
Yeah, a lot of good progress made on the Mentor Hub topic UI. We had a cognitive walkthrough, which was add well, I guess the design thinking activity for testing a prototype with a sponsor user, which happened to be you as
Mhm.
our sponsor user, and that was really great. We had like 6 or 7 people. Had you run through the using the tool, and then I think the real cool part was getting all the feedback and kind of coming to some clear ideas for what to improve and work on. So yeah, we got a lot done there and got some good direction to take now with the tool. So yeah, thanks for your assistance with that. That was very nice to of you to take time to do that.
Yeah, that was I was actually really impressed by that whole process. In your now scope, I actually checked off a few things. So one of the things we had in there was the design thinking toolkit activities. That's what we did yesterday. We actually did one of those
Right.
toolkit activities. So can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, again, it was the cognitive walkthrough activity, and uh, aside from what I mentioned about it just being a way for you to get feedback on a initial prototype, it kind of takes into account some of the key design thinking principles of observe, reflect, and then make. So we practiced some of those skills in observing you walk through trying to use the tool, sometimes successfully, sometimes not so successfully, or just areas where there's pain points. And then just kind of reflecting on what it should do, or what how it should function. And then the making part is where I we can take the feedback areas and create new issues and try new things.
Uh,
So yeah, it was good to put that in into practice.
Yeah, and I actually found the link because the thing I checked off in your now scope had a hyperlink to the toolkit activities, and it's called
Okay.
the feedback activity grid. So I just put that in your celebrated, and that's a link to. It actually has the same chart on there with the question mark on it in 4 quadrants. So change
Yeah.
ideas, questions worked. Um, so yeah, that's great. That's a lot to celebrate. The other thing I marked off was kind of the same thing. Basically, it's talking about communication challenges with asynchronous communication. This was synchronous communication that happened yesterday, which is kind of interesting. Did you think more about kind of the differences between asynchronous and synchronous communication?
Um, I yeah, in doing that activity, I think the same things can be accomplished, but with synchronous, having everyone in the same room collaborating together, I feel like the feedback loop and the consensus can move forward a lot quicker. We may not have the opportunity to do that as much as like a typical working group, if we were all working in the same company. But I think there's probably a place to do those periodically, to move the project forward. And so in a way, I guess, to summarize that, I think there's a place for both asynchronous and synchronous um, communication and or activities, like what we do inside Discord and the channels, and putting feedback asynchronously together, but then maybe coming together to do these workshops when there's like a tipping point where we need to make decisions and move move in a bigger step.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds great. It sounds like it's not really an either or. It's about taking the best elements of both. And when it comes to, is that kind of how you're thinking about
Yeah,
it?
I agree with that statement for sure.
All right. So yeah, let's talk about the preferred future and kind of the agreement for what we want to hone in on for this meeting. Um,
um
yeah.
yeah, we can talk a little bit about where I am on the overall course, the design thinking course, um, and just let's see, what else can we? Um, yeah, maybe just some opportunities to look at, to go after this initial, once this enterprise thinking course is done, because I'm pretty close with completing that. I'm actually just on the next to last lesson. I think there's like 14 lessons, and I think I'm on the second to last right now. So I'd love to know if there's anything um, additional for design thinking, or maybe some other areas to focus on with regards to just like these big picture concepts.
Yeah, so I mean, there are the other tiers. There's a co-curator, coach, team essentials for AI tier. Um, have you thought about anything like that? Would you be interested in becoming more specialized in this sort of thing, or like what are some ideas you've had in regards to where you'd like to go once you finish this course and you're very nearly done?
I haven't thought about those other tiers. I don't know what a um, the co-creator, coach, those other ones would entail. I'm assuming they're just a little more involved in like the processes versus just having an overall knowledge of someone like on a team. You're maybe more in a lead role, like guiding these um, activities, design thinking activities. Is that what those other courses would kind of do as a creator or coach?
Yeah, I'm looking at the courses more carefully. It looks like there are much larger time commitments. The next tier, co-creator tier, is about 3 to 6 weeks to complete. The practitioner estimated about 2 hours. So yeah, it's quite a bit of a extra time commitment. It's applying it to a team, so it's kind of um, have you so like yeah, like what are your thoughts in regard to the kinds of commitments you want to make going forward, and whether or not like committing to something like this makes sense?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm ready to invest all of. I mean, that might be something I could do, dedicating a little bit of time each week, but then it would probably I don't know how long that would prolong it, but I definitely still want to have contribute some of my learning time to this concept. I'm also interested in like more learning more about applying agile principles and also like the scrum methodologies for software development and those things. I know there's a little bit of overlap with some of the principles of iterating, and this practitioner one that I did, I know is focused a lot on like the design, but it seems like it also could apply to just like a whole project as well. But yeah, so that's, I don't know if that answered your question about um, in my interest in how much time I want to commit to this
Yeah,
topic, but
yeah, it
I'm
answered.
still interested in it.
Okay, so I guess if you had to kind of choose and like there were something else, you know, like let's say you had an hour and you could either focus on this, make it like a clear decision. I'm gonna focus on this, or there was something else where it's like I just can't focus on this. I'd much rather do that other thing. Could you think of something like that? Is this is there anything else maybe that you would kind of rather focus on, or think you might get more benefit if you prioritize?
Um, I I don't think I have anything else like currently that I would say I would in this like conceptual space. I do have want to have like a lot of my weekly professional development still focused on actual coding and improving my skills there. But then I I still think that this like design thinking, agile, and or like Scrum type realm has a big place in the in my studies as well, but it'll just be like a smaller part of it.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. So let me write down kind of where we're at right now. I'll fill out the now scope, and then we'll move on to the like the implementation of the on Rails coaching thing. So right now you're very nearly complete with the design thinking course. You actually helped conduct an exercise using the resources within it, and you're seeing the value of it, and want to see that through. So in your now scope, I've got the same thing that was there before. I've just added some notes here, that it's almost finished, and to maybe look over the next tier a little.
Yeah, I think another thing that came out of that we could put in the now scope um, is taking the the feedback outcomes. And I talked to Mike a little bit about this. Is that basically taking those feedback items and creating issues in GitHub um, to so that those things can be worked on. So that's kind of another thing that I'm gonna try to focus on this next week.
Awesome. So is there anything like in the toolkit that would help with that?
Um, not I don't think in particular. Um, but as far as the toolkit, well, not the toolkit, but just the course, I definitely will have that finished this time. I did spend a lot of time just working on the code to get everything to a working prototype.
Hmm.
There was quite a bit that you didn't get to see because we had you look at category and adding topics that way, but there's a whole path route built out to add topics to path and segments. But yeah, for this next week, I think completing the practitioner's course and like furthering the um, creating some mentor hub issues to work on.
Mentor hub issues to work on. Okay, so yeah, let's move on to the celebration. So the generic question here is, what would you like to be able to share with me next time? We've talked about completing the course. We've had it marked down in there to share that on LinkedIn so people can see that. And Yeah, so let's set some maybe some. Let's talk more about the coding side because this week, a lot to celebrate with taking those ideas from the design thinking practitioners, but none of that could have happened without the advancements you made in the actual code. You actually had an issue open on one of them. Is that issue? Could you tell me more about the particular issues you have and like kind of uh, what the meeting yesterday, like kind of how those issues are different now?
Like the problem, or are we talking like the GitHub issue?
The tracked ticket.
Oh, okay. So the track ticket, the GitHub issue was to build out the topic UI interface and create certain routes. One of them being a category route and the ability to add a topic um, and add skills and resources to a topic. And so that initial prototype is basically complete. Although doing the workshop yesterday, we identified some areas that we can improve on. But as far as the initial one, uh, it's pretty much complete. There was a note about like building some testing uh, into it, but we're gonna, I think, just we may do that in a separate ticket and then also create some feature tickets in GitHub for the specific areas that we identified yesterday.
Okay, great. So I'm filling out the now scope. I'm going to put checkbox code, continue mentor hub based on the feedback meeting. Um, so I want to give some extra time. We got about 8 minutes. Usually there's about 5 minutes for this to talk about the transformation, about how discoveries are making a difference. Because I feel like the exercise yesterday was all about that. You're putting time into something, then you watch other people use it. So I could imagine that being a really transformative process. Could you talk more about that?
Yeah. So first, it was really hard not to say anything while you were going through it because uh, as the developer, you have like an idea of how someone would use the tool. Um, and so when I saw you like not really, you created like resources and skills, but it didn't see the basically the way to edit the details of those. Yeah, that was difficult. But I think the thing that I took away just and that's kind of a design thinking principle too is just the focus on the user, and that as a developer um, building the tool, how I think the user may use the tool isn't always um, valid or their preferred way, and that's okay. Um, and that I think that's the value in doing the workshop and these exercises, because it's still very early on in building the tool. This was like an initial prototype. So to have um, like a sponsor user using the tool, um, it helps me maintain focus on who's going to be using it and kind of their needs, to build those things in early, and not so much rely on what I think the user needs or how they will use the tool, but actually seeing um, seeing that. So yeah, just a big takeaway being the focus on the user and just keeping the user as centered to the whole process.
Great. So, what did you discover was a difference between what you thought a user would do versus what they did?
I think what I described with regards to skills and resources,
Mm-hmm.
um, what I thought might be intuitive, um, with just creating a skill and having the user create just the name, that it might be intuitive enough that they would click on an edit button to go into it, but it was a little bit too much of a assumption, maybe, or a big of a leap that they would know what they could edit without really seeing it. So yeah, that was probably the biggest one.
Awesome. So, like, how does that make a difference? Like, what would that change in like what you're doing?
It Well, it just changes how I build the tool ultimately, and um, as it's an early prototype, I can more easily integrate those features that will um, satisfy what the user needs in order to just use the tool more effectively. So I think it's the value is being able to add those things in early on, whereas without without that feedback, we'd get to the end of what I think is a finished thing, and then find out that there's lots of things that the user can't utilize efficiently.
Cool. Is there anything else you'd like to say regarding transformation?
Um, well, I not really. I did have one kind of takeaway that's not related. I had I haven't actually applied for jobs in the last couple of weeks.
Okay.
Focus Been focusing a lot on just building and coding and stuff. But I actually had a phone screen on Thursday, and I've got another phone screen on Monday, just from uh, just having my resume out there, having my network out there. I think one of them found me through a jobs site. Um, I think it was on clearance jobs, but yeah, just the takeaway there, just being some of the stuff takes time, but and it'll eventually catch up, and you'll get the opportunities. So it's okay maybe to take breaks here and there, but just keep working forward and get the opportunities.
Awesome. Is there anything regarding that? Like for in my experience, like that will happen to me, and I look at the resume they're using and it's outdated. Have you done anything like that where you like look at these older places and made an update to show kind of more like or at the very least just looked and verified that the resume they have on file is a resume you want them to have?
Yeah, I actually did that on my clearance jobs profile. And with that, so yeah, I updated the resume, and then they do another thing where they track like how recent your profile is, and it's based on how often you're logged in to the website to look at whatever there. So I periodically go back to keep my profile fresh there. And I think that does help when recruiters are looking through and they're like, okay, there's all these people with technical skills, but who's actively looking for a job? That, that doing that um, kind of helps keep you at the top of the list.
All right. Yeah. That. So a lot to celebrate there too. I put that in your celebrated. You're taking phone screens. You're keeping the search alive by making sure your information is updated and making sure that your accounts show that you're still actively looking.
Yep.
All right. So I think that's uh, it for the half an hour. So I guess I'll stop recording unless there's anything else you'd like to say.
No, we're good. Thanks for all the time this week.
Yeah.